We are ready for game number 2. I am excited because I'm actually like in the anticipation here, Rebel. The anticipation's killing me. I'm like, do we see another spicy draft? Do we see a little bit more craziness? What's happening? How does MSU recover?
So they went with a little bit of craziness, I think, all throughout, right? Like they went with the Vayne Senna bottom lane, they went with the Rengar Ivern, they went with the Mordekaiser, and like some of this worked, some of it didn't. All of it together obviously did not work. They have to reel it in a little. I like to see Rengar Ivern with a more standard composition, right? Like I like to see, like, if you're gonna run Senna Vayne in the bottom side, have more standard around that, right? Like if you're gonna do these types of things. I think that's what makes sense to me, because combining both of them obviously didn't work. And I agree. I think TJ made a very good point where it's Argentum, again, isn't somebody that oftentimes plays something that is very, again, intensive in terms of mechanics, because it's not who he is as a player. He's a he's more of he's a coach for one thing, and then being able to substitute into the support position, oftentimes he finds himself in the enchanter role. And so the Senna was something that he clearly got punished on by Loopk a number of times in the laning phase and outside the laning phase. So yeah, get him onto something that doesn't require that type of positioning expertise, and I think things look a lot more comfortable for MSU. Reel it in just a little bit.
Yeah, don't go chaos in all 5 roles, right?
Oh yeah.
Like you want to doctor the chaos a little bit. You want to contain it and weaponize it if you possibly can. And it's a little hard to do that when it's just going every other direction. But Harrisburg did a fantastic job containing MSU, and I think that's something to definitely highlight. Going into that last draft, we talked about it time and time again. Very stable. It's a draft that you would see just about any day of the week, and they just played their comp to a T. They weathered the chaos just fine.
They did. They did what I like to call or what I like to call taking care of business, right? Like it's a matter of they weren't making incredibly risky plays. They weren't taking like over aggressive stances in a game. They weren't providing ways to get back in. Instead, they did exactly what they needed to do to win out a circumstance like that. They closed off Michigan State's ways of winning the game, and instead just let the game play itself out, because that was what their composition yielded. And I think it was a patient style play, and one that not a lot of teams, to me, the two that can do it best are Harrisburg and ASU. Those are the two teams that have showed it for the kind of the earlier stages in the round of 32. They were the ones that I expected to be able to do this. We'll see if the strike back is here from the side of MSU as well, to be able to again throw more disarray into a composition like this and make sure that Harrisburg sweats a little bit more at the beginning of the game.
Now, if you're either one of these teams, is there a particular pick that you're like, you're not playing that anymore after that last game?
I really don't think you could. My apologies. I don't think you can give Zile Trundle. I really think that was one of the biggest things that shut down so much of what Harrisburg or what MSU wanted to do. Number one, when you give them something that scales a little bit better inside of the jungle that wants to farm, the idea that it goes to his Graves, Rengar can take better advantage of the jungle versus jungle matchup. You can't do that on the Rengar if you're playing into a Trundle. Trundle is too powerful to start off a game and had too much influence over a lot of things. Not to mention its comfort for Zile. So I think they need to take that away very significantly. The Volibear is something else that I think can do very similar things, where again it's difficult if they want to go back to a Rengar or something aggressive in the jungle role. Those champions kind of get bounced off of a little bit, and so that's why I'm not shocked to see them start to get banned away here.
Not shocked at all. You see some of this proactivity be banned away. Harrisburg is still on the blue side as well. The first pick, Gnar, was something that you and me both raised an eyebrow at. I'm curious to see if we'll see that again.
Yeah, I'm not really shocked about any of the bans. Harrisburg, I think, stayed consistent between the two games. It's a question of whether an ADC comes out here from Michigan State to see if they can actually remove that one from the table. Or because I believe last time they went with double EDC and then into Volibear, as opposed to anything else coming through. Emps all had a remarkably good performance on the Victor in the mid lane, not only taking the gap over top of Lance and being able to scale effectively into the late game, but again, the amount of control in terms of area in team fights that he was able to hold was really incredible. Emps is somebody that I think that they wanted to bring in over the course of the last season, came in this split again from South America, coming in from some of those professional type regions as well, and has really made a massive impact for the team. I know last year they had a senior starting in mid lane who had some very solid play as well, but Emps has been more than filling that role over the course of this split as well. As Harrisburg, again, that's the Gnar B1, man. This is wild to me.
It has to be them just saying, yo, Lawrence feels comfortable with this Gnar and anything that Sunlight can break out. So that is the statement that is being made by Lawrence. But Michigan State said, all right, cool. We're not going to lock in Rengar Ivern right off the get-go. We're going to get ourselves the misfortune. We're going to go for something a little bit more in the standard play.
And this was what was banned out from them because they banned Misfortune and Jinx in the previous iteration of the draft, thinking that I was going to go to Hopeful, but Hopeful obviously not wanting that one is now the Ivern also gets locked in. Interesting. The combination of Daisy with the bullet time is actually a really intriguing one because it's similar to miniature Braum ultimates that kind of get popped out in the middle of a team. So right circumstances, like for example, that choke point that they got caught in around that Rift Herald in the last game. Imagine a bullet time going through there. That would have been 3-4 dead members very, very easily. As now we see the response from Harrisburg, and that's a little spicier than normal. Okay.
Wow. That's different.
Okay.
That is very different.
The only team that's running this is your favorite in Colorado Boulder, and they ran it in the mid lane as a counter to the Ahri pick. No one else has really grabbed this all that often, but with some of the AD nerfs, apparently teams are still feeling these effects. They've been trying to come up with answers, and here they see the Misfortune blind pick. They go, okay, usually there isn't a lane that works super well into it. Maybe this is the Samira angle. Maybe this is the angle where you can aggress very, very close range against the Misfortune and try to deny her in the landing phase. Maybe this is the aggression from Hopeful and Loopk to try to take advantage of the hands of Zethal and ArgentumSky the way they did in the previous as well.
Yeah, this is hard engage, hard kill threat inside of the bot lane coming from Harrisburg. This is, like you said, not what we're used to from them, but they said, hey, look, we're showing these little bits of aggression. Let's show you a little bit more. Wukong comes into play as well, so it's getting exciting.
You know what? The real spice is here. I actually think, while it's possible this is going to Sunlight, because I think Wukong is actually really good, it is not impossible this is going to RBM. We've seen this in the jungle. I've seen it a couple of places start to pop up, especially if it ends up being like a mid lane Ivern to be able to connect to put Wukong into the right circumstances. RBM has a lot of ways to actually make massive impacts on this champion in the earlier stages, especially into the mid lane. They want to throw a disruption in between those two. So it's an interesting idea. This is a lot more flexible. It's a lot of team fighting combination as well. This is the thing that they were missing last time. If they're going to go for a bunch of like weirder picks, things like this Ivern or things like the Wukong that like could be flexed around a little bit more than what you'd expect, then put together a solid team fighting composition. Put together ultimates that are going to be able to synergize together, and that's exactly what they're doing. Now their team fight looks more cohesive, and they still get some of the delinquency that we expect from Michigan State altogether.
Yeah, I like the idea too, the delinquency, plus the fact that we were talking about in the last game. Imagine that with a little bit of AoE. Well, buddy, we got it. We got it here, Rebel.
We did.
Got Wukong, we got the Misfortune. I'm expecting this to give us a little bit of clarity, but last time I said that they locked in Senna and everything went out the window. So, MSU, they have their last pick before they end up getting to show some stuff. Leona makes a lot of sense paired together with a Misfortune.
So I saw no Soraka ban, and I was like, it is possible you just punish the Nautilus with a Soraka here, but obviously they anticipate that the Leona is just going to be good enough here for ArgentumSky. More engage, more buttons to press to be able to go forward inside of a fight, to set up this Wukong, to set up this Misfortune and their big ultimates into the back line. As Harrisburg, no Zac ban, means that he goes back into the hands of Zile. That's kind of nice to see. You give up a little bit of your agency, but it's a very forward-fighting composition now. The Ahri fits alongside this, I think, rather nicely in the grand scheme of things, because Zac likes to go forward, Gnar likes to go forward in fights, and Samira loves to go forward in fights. So that all combined with one another, usually you like put somebody in the back that's able to kind of clean things, and Ahri makes a lot of sense to do that because she's got a bunch of mobility, and the resets let her kind of be able to accomplish that fact if a fight really starts to go the distance. Yeah,
and Emps, like you were talking about, had a fantastic game in game number 1. So why not put some eggs in the basket? That is Emps. It's a highly successful one. Now, Michigan State, they have their last pick. It is the Gwen. So we have a jungle Wukong and a Gwen over in the top. Oh, wait, never mind. Flip the script. Never mind. Rewind it. I didn't say anything. It's a Gwen jungle.
See, the only reason that I was, okay, this is probably going to end up being a Wukong top, which is why I mentioned it to start with, was just that, again, the Gnar got blind picked at 1, and so you got to see it for a very long time. So Michigan State came up with the answer, and then they had enough time to be like, okay, we could flex it if we wanted to. We could put a bunch of champions in different places. The only thing we were certain of is that the Ivern was never going to be going into the jungle position.
Yes.
So that's not RBM's forte. Instead, you get the Gwen. This was popular a while back, kind of fell out of favor. Now I think there were changes within the last patch or the patch before that Gwen got buffed back into the jungle. Some of the changes that were made really did help her out at least a little bit, and so here RBM willing to take that one. Harder to engage on with the W, so like there's no like long range pick tool that can actually be used against the Gwen, so you can stand in the midst of a team fight, and again a lot of big AoE through damage to compile with this Misfortune to really change the way that MSU looks inside of the 5-1-5.
Yeah, the team fighting from this composition is actually pretty immense, right? Like, like you do look at it and the tools that they have. One of the big complaints that we had that we talked about is just imagining the AoE. They have that in spades. Do they have damage that's consistent throughout the fight? They have that in spades now. They have a lot of cool things for themselves while still playing to this whole chaos factor that they have enabled for themselves from MSU. But Harrisburg, they got themselves some strengths for themselves, and I feel like you absolutely have to look at it. You have Zile on the Zat. This is his most signature champion that there can possibly be. This is a champion that he's been very, very consistently good at. And you have that paired together with Emps and Hopeful, who are coming off of a great performance from the two of them, and they're playing Ahri Samira. This could be a very devastating thing for MSU to deal with.
It can be. My one problem with this composition from Harrisburg is that if the Samira doesn't get going really heavily, there's a problem of where does your damage come from? Because the Samira is so much of the backbone, the ADC is so much of the backbone, that Hopeful really does need to get going. Ahri can do some, right? Like, Emps is going to be able to patchwork it. And of course, like, Zach has some, he has percentage health damage. Gnar is going to have some as well, like if you go for Black Cleaver and things along those lines. But for the most part, you don't have a consistent full carry like a Jinx or something that, like, in previous patches would have been the linchpin of a composition like this, being able to deliver damage into a composition where you're throwing your Zac and your Gnar and your Nautilus forward. So that's one thing I have concern with, but ultimately I think it's really cool. It's a little bit of a different look from Harrisburg, which again, I had anticipated walking into the game. I said, how can they shake up the mold? They figured out a way to do so.
This could be the final game, though. The mold needs to be strong because top 8 is on the line. Michigan have themselves backed into the corner. As see if Harrisburg's standard strategy with a little bit of spice now sprinkled in be able to catch MSU. Looks like they might. ArgentumSky needs to run away. Emps is cutting it off. This is a sad story. You can flash, but you can't run. ArgentumSky does have a shield. The trigger seed will keep him alive, but it's so unfortunate to lose that flash early on.
It is. It's not a world ender, though, which is a nice thing. Like, ArgentumSky loses the flash. I was worried they were just going to die right then and right there. I think if Emps goes for the charm, like, and is able to land that one, draw him back into the team, there's some potential maybe for that to just have to be sacrificed. But a situation in which, again, Argentum was far enough up in the river. Typically, you kind of dip your nose into the river as well, just to make sure you could see when they do the full entrance. But he didn't get vision of them until they were halfway up the wall. And that's what led to Argentum having to burn the flash. Just didn't get vision of them quick enough in order to see. And so that 5 point ends up breaking down. Good punishment for Michigan State as well, to be able to find the advantage there.
Now it's just a start coming in. Standard start coming about. As you can see, Hopeful and Loop were ready for some aggression down there in the bot side, waiting for somebody to show up, but nobody ever did. Leashes have been done, and now the junglers are looking to get their clears underway.
They are. And the last game that we saw, there was not a ton of very early activity from Zile. The first bit of activity was actually a cover gank in the mid lane that ended up in a kill going to his pockets and a kill going into his mid laner. And that's what set him into a very good place where he was suddenly able to start attacking everywhere on the map. I'm curious how a game that is a little bit more even to kick things off changes things for Zile's Zac. As, again, one of these picks that we've known him for a pretty long time inside of amateur, inside of collegiates. I've seen it before myself, and I know for a fact that he's been playing this for such a long time that it's not surprising for him to bring this out. He brought it out in the round of 32, was able to make sure it was. Michigan State had scouted this as well, so now we'll see what he's able to do with this composition. And again, to me, the thing I'm paying attention to mostly, the fact that, of course, Zile is pathing towards bottom lane, again, wanting to play into Hopeful Samira, who had a good previous game, but again, he's the real member of this team that is constantly, to me, going to be under the spotlight and wanting to be the damage dealer and everything else for Harrisburg.
Sunlight.
Wow.
Is he going to get solo killed here? The stun connects. This is going to be a solo, possibly. Really Big Meme is here in the wings, but the flash has been blown aggressively, and it is a trade. First blood to the Gnar, but kill secured by Really Big Meme.
Unfortunate to not get the first blood over to Michigan State. It would have made a big difference, but of course the Gwen getting some gold is positive. It's a lot of AP damage. If you're able to funnel additional camps and minions and stuff into her through like the mid lane and the Ivern, I think there's a lot of benefits to having this Gwen be incredibly strong in a game like this, being able to be the one that gets denied in a number of places. But of course, now this is the second game in a row of the blind Gnar that Lawrence has just been taking regardless of the situation in the early levels. Again, the range advantage, the Mega Gnar, all difficult things to deal with before you hit the level 3, taking advantage of Sunlight, who didn't quite get that mark.
We were looking at a replay, but we're back into the mid lane as there's 3 members here. Ignite ticking away. Lance goes down. Loop secures the kill with Ignite.
And now striking against the Ivern in the mid lane in the first move of the game. Zile able to move out into mid to find something there. Great position to find yourself in. You can see Argentum was ready for Zile to jump on top of that one, try to punish him to the best of his abilities. As now, Harrisburg, again, this is a little bit less standard. Usually Zile tends to play a little bit more, farm heavy, I would say, on the Zac. Hasn't quite taken the back yet, so is going to start only just now taking the back. Maybe not expecting him to gank on the end of his clear. Is a little bit crazy. Again, subverting expectations. Harrisburg doing some things that you wouldn't normally expect. Loop showing up here also at the very tail end of things. Didn't actually accomplish that. Slow, I guess, kept Lance a little more damage as well, but probably doesn't need it all that much. But one way or another, again, the play into the mid lane, punishing the Ivern, and getting your Ahri ahead, very valuable things for Harrisburg.
Very good to see indeed. It's important to take note too with these two junglers. I mean, these are two junglers that this is their last year of CeeLo, right? Like, they are graduating. Like, these are two junglers that are, as you said, are very storied inside of the scene, and only one of the two of them can make it into top 8 between Really Big Meme and Zile. So you can definitely feel that both of them want to make something work. Zac still hasn't backed yet, it looks like.
I don't believe the scoreboard has updated.
The scoreboard hasn't updated.
No
okay.
Yeah, that's what.
Okay. I was scared for him. I was like, "What? Why hasn't he backed?"
You're taking it back in the Raptor pit. Yeah, that's all right. It's okay. Things happen. So yeah, he taking it back in the Raptor pit. I was able to catch that one out right after the gank had come through. So it's not too crazy of an itemization difference so far coming out from anybody. The 400 gold lead mostly attributed just to that first blood coming through from Harrisburg. Of course, Gnar in the top lane. But the big thing is, again, Michigan State's composition doesn't have to get super active to start things off, right? Last game, it felt like the Rengar has to snowball. This time, it doesn't really feel like that, right? Like, it feels like you can play out for, like, the second dragon of the game. You can play out for second Rift Herald and try to take fights around those objectives rather than having to set somebody off onto this really good foot to begin with, because you've got these ultimates that are reliable to team fight with, and I think that's great. Harrisburg, on the other hand, of course, again, I want to see them try to get gold. I feel like they really need one of their 2 damage dealers to be on a front foot if they want to be very competitive. Have that, then your front line gets to just go blindly into the opposing front line. You get to CC people, and your damage can take care of the rest. Whereas, if one of your damage dealers isn't popping off, you have to be more selective with your engagements.
You do start to see 6s across the table, ultimate abilities being gathered for all the members inside this game. And that's where this game starts to really blow open, it feels like. Lawrence getting the stun off onto Sunlight, but the Cyclone is double, and he gets to throw Sunlight over the wall. The Nautilus is stopping Sunlight from being able to solidify the kill. It is absolutely disasterific for Sunlight. He just wants to do something, but the Ignite is there. Loop, the Guardian Angel.
Man, he burns through like 2,000 health in the early stage of the game, and he's about 200 health more away from double kill, but Sunlight can't make it happen. No, the Ignite does get burned, but it isn't quite enough to take down Lawrence, and like you said, the replacement of Loopk coming in, being able to put out the damage, being able to prevent him from going down, taking the place of that Gnar, just means that, again, Wukong falls with no response. The kill, thankfully, does go onto the Nautilus, so there is at least that. As you can see, leaning into the top side, 3 members here from MSU, flexing on Zile, making sure he's not going to have anything, putting some support into the Gwen to make sure that RBM is feeling good for the team fights. Once again, having one of your damage dealers ready to go. And one of these important members, of course, the Gwen, again, denying some of the longer range engage, the pick tools with that W when she is immune, means that she's going to have impact inside of fights pretty much no matter what.
You can see here inside the replay, you can see where things went great for Sunlight. Sunlight started this off great, but just look at what Loop does inside of this fight.
Yeah, it was really incredible the way that he was able to play into Lawrence right there. I love the use of the Shadow also to put another clone next to him for like the double Q to put additional damage into Lawrence. And look how close he was. He was maybe an auto and a half away from killing off Loop as well in the midst of everything. And so you can see, it looks like there might have been something in the mid lane. I think it was something that caused that. But yeah, it's already been a bit of a bloodthirsty game. I do like, again, Michigan State's chances is later. But again, the activity from Harrisburg and the differences that we've seen between their composition, their drafting, and their gameplay in just this first bit of Game 2 is actually giving me quite a bit of hope for them. They're looking like a little bit of a different team, which is nice to see. The playoffs buffs are active for Harrisburg here.
The one thing that shakes fear into every collegiate squad, they see Harrisburg in their playoff bracket, and they're just like, oh no. We know what this means. Like, this squad it's storied. They always find their way up there. They are always at the very top of collegiate programs, something that we were talking about time and time again. And here we go. They're looking to solidify that even further more. Lanse getting jumped onto, and it's an easy roam. A kill taken, and ArgentumSky next up. 2 swift and easy kills for Harrisburg in the mid lane.
And just pumping through mid lane as much as possible, cutting the Ivern off from the rest of the map. Yes, you aren't really accomplishing that much by denying that, but again, with no mid laner and without one of your premier team fighters here, it's so much more difficult for Michigan State to contest around the map, to put together a cohesive 5-on-5 that's going to be competitive on the other side. And again, you're getting Emps ahead, which is humongous. I almost would have preferred Samira to get that kill. In fact, I would have preferred that to be the case, letting Samira get the last auto attack off onto the Ivern to pull that one additional kill. But the Rift Herald now in their possession means that they're going to be able to select where this gold goes, and I don't think that bottom lane is a bad place to put it. If you want to put aggression into Zethal, ArgentumSky is incredibly behind in experience. It's a great place to look to strike, especially if Michigan State give themselves up on the Dragons. They know that there's no way to respond to it if Zile shows up on the bottom lane. That's my thought process here. I really want to see them put this bottom side.
Sunlight has the Cyclone, but it's not enough. You can throw out a decoy, but it'll throw you and a decoy up against the wall. Lawrence looking to present this aggression that Sunlight has no other choice but to deal with. Cannot deceive his way out of that. As this game continuing to go forward, Lawrence is getting an advantage on this first pick. Gnar picked this completely blind.
Yeah, able to make it work 2 games in a row. Lawrence is somebody that, like, we haven't spoken too much about in this series. I know in round of 32 we talked about him being somebody that's really experienced. He was on C9 amateur, was able to make a run to Proving Grounds, played a couple of games in academy at the beginning of the split. Lawrence is somebody that has a lot of respect from a lot of different people as a top laner, and is proven, I think, himself to be somebody that was able to develop. But at the beginning of C9 amateur's tenure, I remember him being somebody that, like, I pretty much only played Renekton, if I recall. But then by the end of the tenure, he was actually, like, a very legitimately scary top laner to play against, and it's always great to see that kind of development. Now back in collegiate, back on Harrisburg, is looking like one of the members that's been able to clutch very heavily, especially in scenarios where he's able to carry. And in this game, taking the brunt of the Gnar B1, again, that's a little bit of a terrifying prospect for some players. Some top laners would fold to that kind of pressure, fold when there's counter picks that are being brought against him. But Lawrence playing these lanes out pretty effectively.
Lawrence, he's practiced this kick 5,000 times. He feels confident in what he's got, and he's looking to kick down this top lane tower with some assistance from Zile. It's going to be first brick for Harrisburg as they get even more gold into Lawrence, into this Gnar. As you can see, RBM and Lanse are looking for something around the map, but there's nothing for them to be able to grab now that the Dragon's gone. There's no Herald. There's nothing for them.
It's a position where RBM is in a, like, economically speaking, much better position than Zile, but it hasn't accomplished that much because you're not even on first item, and Zile is already past first item because he's building the full tank Zac, and his job is different than yours. The one thing I guess you can kind of prop up on is, again, the Samira hasn't pulled all that much gold. The 2 assists and maybe 5 to 10 CS advantage over Zethal isn't anything massive, and especially with Exhaust, big AoE champions hate that spell. Kennen's a really big one that hates it, but of course Samira falls victim to the same thing, where again Exhaust can just kind of remove you from a team fight altogether, and Zethal has that in the arsenal as well to utilize. So when team fights do show up here from Michigan State, again, this is where I was anticipating them to really play for, but they've just kind of been getting moved around the map to the tone that Harrisburg wants them to. It's kind of crazy.
Zile stretching his arms, getting a good stretch in there. Not going to go for the gank onto the unsuspecting Misfortune. I had the ward there, so was suspecting something was up. As you can see, the push is still continuing to come about. Here we go, turn it around. Aggression onto the Ivern mid lane, but Daisy's there to run interference.
Biggest thing I'm noticing is that Harrisburg has been active in making sure that they've got multiples in a couple of places, whether it's ganks, whether it's fights. they're always in a position that multiple members are striking all at once. Michigan State feels like they haven't really had that. At no point have they found a position where they're at a numbers advantage for the majority of this game. At no point have you really been able to put everybody in one place at a time when you've got a team fighting style of composition. I'd like to see them do that sometime in the next few minutes. In 1.5 minutes, of course, the Dragon is going to be spawning. Rift Herald is going to be up in a couple of minutes here as well. As 2 opportunities into the mid lane.
Oh, look at this. 3 members, all the CC layered onto Lance. Lance has been dropped, and Really Big Meme looking to try and answer back, but Zile is going to be able to just resuscitate himself with his passive. Really Big Meme gets reaggressed, but doesn't drop to these 3 members mid lane. Harrisburg they feel like they are a step ahead of whatever Michigan's wanting to go for.
And the preparation from Harrisburg today to be ready for this, to be able to play in 2 different styles. The first game very defensively, and the second game here very aggressively. Being able to take a front foot in a game like this, where you're pushing past the Gwen who wants to scale for team fights, pushing past this team that wants to be there ready for the 5-on-5, and getting the advantage to start the game off right is a very different look. Harrisburg is not, this is not a tool I expected to be in the toolbox of Harrisburg. So if this is something they've been developing over this patch, if this is something their coaches have been working on them with over the last while, this is something that goes completely against what our expectations were for Harrisburg, and something that makes a lot of sense for them to bring out in their playoff one when they're trying to make it into top 8. This is a team that is incredibly good. Getting 3rd place in the East, I think, was not the expectation that they had when they walked out and lost against Scarborough in that semifinals. You know they were angry when they played against Toronto and won that 3-0 in the 3rd-4th match, of course. And Harrisburg wants everything then. Like, they want it all back again today, showing that they are capable of being there alongside the best here. With Michigan State, the preparation is just unbelievably good today.
I love the fact, too, that Michigan State did say, hey, yo, the Ivern was fine last game. And game 2, they lock in Ivern, and Harrisburg's response is, okay, we attack that this time. Like, you don't get to play Ivern for free like that. We're not playing something that just scales like the Victor. We are playing a much more aggressive matchup. We are playing something that is much more in your face. We have charms, we have anchors, we're going to throw those there. We have a long range slingshot. What do you have that's able to stop that? What can Ivern do to stop that? He has no tools of that besides trying to just stay alive for a little bit longer. The Moonstone completed, but the rest of the members of Michigan State have to get to their item breakpoints. They need to get to a point where they can start having a huge impact, and they haven't found that. Harrisburg's lead has just been slowly growing.
This is my biggest complaint, I think, about what I've seen from MSU in this game specifically, which is that how many times have you seen Sunlight interact with Lance? How many times have you seen Lance interact with Zethal? How many times have you seen Zethal interact with RPM? They're not. It's not just about not grouping together as one big force. We really just haven't seen them at all together. It feels like 3 lanes that have been tacked together by, of course, the fact that they're red side, and RBM's been roaming between them, trying to fish for things, trying to find things, but the laners themselves aren't moving that much. I think Zethal has spent all of his time in bottom side except for when he's backed, and I think the same is true of Sunlight, which is unfortunate, because again, if you put together a Wukong ultimate of the Cyclone with the bullet time, that's an insanely valuable combination of ultimates that just has not even been attempted yet from Michigan State. They're trying to farm up. They're trying to get to a position where they feel comfortable, where they feel powerful with that combination of spells. But how long do you have to wait in this game before Harrisburg takes enough of a lead with this composition that they just get to embrace anything that you want to bring to them and just turn it right back? Like, Zach jumps on top of you when you're trying to bullet time, you have to leave. There is no ultimate that's going to come through. Cyclone's not going to do enough damage if Samira goes diving past you and ends up ulting in your backline. It's things that Michigan State, I don't think, are prepared for when it comes to the 5-on-5. They're waiting too long to try to make it happen.
I'm trying to make it grow here. They're going into the backline. Look at Zach. Look at Zal. Look at Samira popping off. They pull the trigger. It looks so stylish. 3 kills in quick succession, and Harrisburg are completely online in the team fight.
And were it not for that first kill in the game where RBM was there in time to try to salvage a little bit of the top lane play between Sunlight and Lawrence, getting that 1-for-1 after the first blood goes over to the Gnar, there's a perfect game being established from the side of Harrisburg in terms of kills. They have given nothing up, and now they're going to run down mid lane with an insanely valuable second Rift Herald that's going to be able to crack them, maybe even the inhibitor. It looks like the defense will be here in time for Sunlight to not actually get that one up. They're not going to be anything more pushing, but man, Michigan State are just getting run past in this game.
It's not something I think anybody would be expecting, and you can even see this they're the ones that start this. MSU say, hey, yo, we'll pull the trigger, we'll get on the loop, and look at the answer.
Yeah, and look how quickly Hopeful also is able to stack all these passives and be able to ult into the backline. Right there, 2 members go down! Like, what are you supposed to do about that? Hopeful just took over this fight before anything kicked off. You don't have positioning for Misfortune to be able to press the ultimate effectively. You don't have the Cyclone nearby. You're just trying to pick onto the Nautilus and try to hope that you've got enough members here to make things work, but unfortunately, Harrisburg's ready for it. They've got everything prepared.
Another teleport. I Am Sunlight is in a terrible place. He gets rushed down. Emps gets that kill. Sky goes dark. And it is 2 kills easily. And it is going to be the 3rd. Really big meme will get CC'd. Welcome to the bouncy castle. Hopeful will have the kill for themselves.
Harrisburg, man, coming online, showing up when they need to. A lot of people, like, this was a very competitive series. I think it was really difficult to come out here and to say, hey, Michigan State versus Harrisburg is going to be one of the best matchups in round of 16. I think anybody that watched collegiate for the majority of the season could have come to that conclusion. Michigan State has a bunch of wonky picks. They're going to make it aggressive. They're going to make it saucy at minimum. Harrisburg has had none of it. Harrisburg has controlled so much of both games, defensively, offensively, macro. Everything has been all Harrisburg. It feels like there are so few moments for Michigan State that I've been able to point to that have been like something that I could be like, wow, they really made an aggressive play. It worked out super well. Harrisburg, on the other hand, everybody is performing above expectation for me today. And this is the Harrisburg that's going to be continuing on in the tournament. I am terrified. They are looking so crisp right now.
Not only are they looking crisp, man, I want to bring it up. We're in almost 20 minutes into the game. All the towers are virtually untouched.
Yeah.
Like none of the towers have even had a touch. We just saw the observer just sat there at the top side for a moment. That damage was done by minions. It was not done by Wukong. Like, we are 20 minutes in, and this is the state of the towers. Harrisburg. Playoff buff is something to be feared when it comes down to the squad, it seems. And they're going to secure Dragon. Michigan State, they have to figure out an answer to what Harrisburg is constantly just being able to just assert themselves with. They have to figure out a way to actually have a team fight. Wait, Zile jumping in? Okay. It's fine. Maybe. They're going for it. They want it. Depth charge has been used on the really big meme. They're not going to be able to get it passive pop for the first time inside the game. This is going to be a kill. Zach dropped off of trying to get some chickens. This might have been the breath that MSU needed.
Oh, goodness. Actually, they're going to force right under the Baron. They're going to try to, provoke a team fight here because this is one of the best options they have in. Again, they've got enough tools. They haven't burnt anything here. They've got every team fighting tool available, Travis. If this is a 5v4, they've got everything they need to try to win a fight. This could be the turning point if they've got one.
Sunlight is looking for it. He's going to get the catch on to Emps. Emps is gone. Shutdown going over to MSU. And now it's Lawrence having to retreat. Hopeful as well. They're looking to continue this aggression forward. Hopeful is in a terrible spot, but trades a kill 1-for-1. Lawrence is about to go mega and is looking to see if he can pop any members on the side. The HP bars are so low, blinking red at this moment. Lawrence gets hit by another root, but it's a beautiful dredge line from Loopk that keeps him into the midst. You have the Zach rejoining the fight. Zethal gets the kill onto Lawrence, but it's just them getting chopped down to size. Michigan State pop off huge in the team fight.
Breath. Take a breath, Michigan State. This game was almost out of reach. 10k advantage for Harrisburg. They've got a very well-rounded composition that can fight into you any time that they want, and they've got the damage for it. And you find a way to breathe life, reduce the gold lead by half. They're not done quite yet. RBM is going to get picked out, but I think that should be the end of things. I doubt that Emps is going to go any further. But at minimum, massive play shifting here. Michigan State, again, their team fight is set up perfectly to be able to work with one another, and they hadn't been able to find it a single time. Zile overextends once, they bait the Baron, and finally we get to see this combination of ultimates. Finally we get to see this combination of players begin to play together as a 5-man unit. And this is the moment where Harrisburg, they start to sweat a little bit, right? They start to lose a little bit of the advantage, lose a bit of the lead. And it's a question of whether they have the resilience to continue in a game like this, continue to push an advantage forward, or if they go to a defensive state and allow for Michigan to come back in some way.
You even see, like, the chase comes in. They're like, yo, we can get them. The HP bars are so low. But look at RBM inside of this. He immediately just re-engages.
Goodness gracious. Yeah, it's kind of insane the fact that, like, they went in so far consistently. The re-engage from Zile felt completely unnecessary. This was a very brief moment where where Harrisburg actually overextends and makes a pretty critical error to the side of MSU. And this is all that MSU needs to slink back into a game like this, right? They don't want to be done. They don't want their split to be over. RBM has to be fighting crazy right now to make sure that his team understands that they are not out of this game. I really wonder what Peyton is talking about inside of comms to make sure everyone stays steady, because they are not done yet. Harrisburg has shown in the past, again, a lot of resilience when it comes to being able to make sure their mistakes stay to a minimum. They play a standard game, but the thing is, they have tossed games before. They have tossed series before that are unnecessary in a number of circumstances. And so, right there, not saying it's the opening, they still have a massive advantage. They still have crazy good team fighting to work with on their own volition. But at least Michigan, this is the kind of momentum shift that really does change an entire series.
It gets into your head a little bit too, right? If you're on the side of Harrisburg, you're like, wait a second, they picked up a team fight dub against us. Is this what they do? Do they start hitting the go button now? Is this confidence being garnered by Michigan State? The answer to that is yes. I am Sunlight. Tries to get the sunlight off. Tries to get that cyclone. But it is the TP that deters them from pursuing any further. Emps is on the flank, looking for a possible charm. Zethal is in a situation, but Sky is the one who eats up the damage. Elastic slingshot charge, but not fired off. Both teams meet in the mid lane and return to the Dragon Pit.
And right now, I think one of the biggest things is that this Dragon does make a massive influence, because Harrisburg, if they take it, they don't have to Baron at any point. They don't have to risk anything inside of this game. All they have to do is play for 4th Dragon, play for Infernal Soul with their advantage, and give nothing up. But here, Michigan State's making the aggressive call. They say, let's go to Baron. Let's draw them into us. The cross of the map, like the Emps is still a pretty far distance. They're going to look to expand off of it. They want to take a 5-on-5.
Hopefulx has already just tried to null and void any projectiles heading their way. Emps is over here farming up the chickens as a consolation prize, is on the flank, has that rush available. This is just enough for Michigan State to decide they need to disengage from this Baron Pit. And now, Harrisburg going back towards that Dragon. But look at it! Immediately the call back! Zile is running back over!
You are not giving up the Dragon. You are giving up Baron. You are fighting them at Baron, or you are not getting the Dragon.
No,
you can't
Zile going in. The Cyclone completely stops him from being able to get any CC. The bullet time is only used on 2 Emps. Lots of damage still going forward. ArgentumSky barely holding on, but Lawrence solidifies the kill. And now its members dropping left and right. Really big mean though. Staying alive inside the fight. The Gnar ultimate comes out. The CC is there. Really big meme versus the world. But the world is too heavy. Harrisburg Storm come out on top with a triple from Lawrence.
They cannot quite get everything that they want in a fight like that. Harrisburg instead, on multiple approaches, able to drive off ultimates that otherwise would have a much more massive impact than you would normally see. Because of that, Michigan State is spread too thin, and they can't get the 5-on-5. Again, they are either forcing you to pull off Dragon and come fight them with 5, or you're giving up a Baron or giving up something. Here, engagement from Zile buys enough time on the front, and like you said, bullet time just shoves off Emps. Imagine if he held it. Imagine if over the wall goes Emps and Zethal has it for this moment right here. This is a game-changing moment. But because that cooldown is burst, it means a lot more members from the side of Harrisburg can cluster together to take advantage of all this additional CC that you've got, and it means that the cleanup is there. A very close fight. Still competitive from the side of Michigan State, but Harrisburg comes out very ahead because they get not only the fight win, no Baron, but the 3rd Dragon. Again, you can play for the Infernal Soul. You do no longer have to play to the games of Michigan State. You play by the tune of your own song. It is Michigan who are now pushed up against the wall. They have got to find a way to get their backs away, because at the moment, Harrisburg runs everything.
Well, yeah, because Lawrence keeps throwing them against the wall. That keeps happening time and time again. Yes, their backs are against the wall. They don't have a choice in the matter. Lawrence 4-2-5 on the Gnar. And you look at how Gnar has been piloting these team fights inside of these neutral objectives. when Harrisburg is together, they are so strong. This is a 8K differential in gold just about between these two teams. Michigan State are so down. They haven't been able to find the towers. There's objective bounties all on the table for this squad too. They have comeback factors available. Team fights though have just been going a little bit sly, not out of their favor. Sky caught out of position, gets it. Bullet time gets canceled by the charm. The depth charge as well. Hopefulx gets Leona. Sunlight is in the midst of them all, but really Big Mean gets the kill onto Loopk. So it's a support for support at the end of the play.
Grand scheme of things, also the ultimate... okay, it did end up getting burnt by RBM there. That's what I thought had actually happened. Okay, so it's just kind of clearing the air. A lot of tension right now being relieved from both teams because you're trying to clear some vision as Argentum. You get caught out. The opposing support goes too far forward to punish. It is just a trade back and forth. And there's no objective on the map, so it's not going to lead to anything. Just a bit of setup, I think, in the ability to push down from lxwrence as well. So they want to try to punish the Gnar. Still don't see him. That one ward protects him a lot more than I think they thought. Yeah, there it is.
Just forward. Dog emo. That's just a really big mean things, you know?
Yeah, truly it is. This is such an insane game because there's, like, for the side of Harrisburg at least, you think about how much they've put onto lxwrence to shoulder by blind picking him Gnar again and again, and he is showing up inside of fight, showing up inside the laning phase of his own volition. And instead they put their resources into some of the newer players, some of the players that they brought in like Emps, who has been performing incredibly well. They see the Ivern, and it's easy enough to be like, oh yeah, Emps wins this on his own. He doesn't need the support of his team. He's almost at the flame horizon, a lot of it off the back of the pressure that was put on by Loopk and by Zile to take advantage of that mid lane matchup. They are, you know, very, very much so in favor of the fact that Emps can be the carry of this game, not just Hopeful. And you can see them putting faith inside of their mid lane, putting faith inside the Ahri to be able to assist them as one of these members that can help clean up the end of a team fight. That's somebody to keep in mind on, because again, Harrisburg brought him in specifically for this split, didn't have him last year. They made that top 4 run, and they want to go even further now, and maybe this is the guy that can take them there.
Need a hero, look no further. Harrisburg Storm continuing to just play to the beat of their own drum. They have this dragon in complete control. A minute and a half until Soul spawns. And Harrisburg, they're just waiting for the moment, holding their breath for the moment where Michigan State overstepped their bounds. Is this the moment? No. Clone is the one that's grabbed by Zile. I'm like barely getting away from Zile's reach.
Problem is, every second that ticks off the clock makes this game harder for Michigan State. Not because of scaling, but because of the forced outcome that's going to happen here with Harrisburg. They're going to walk at Dragon. You have options. Your options are trade Baron, and then be down in gold and be down in any map pressure that you could ever have. Hope maybe that you could close the game on a big game-winning fight, but that's about it in terms of your win conditions, because as soon as that Baron falls off, it is an Infernal Soul. It's Harrisburg with an advantage and a ton of damage to work with inside of a very oppressive team fight that likes to fight forward, and it means that you are almost certainly going to be attacked at the first instance you give any sort of aggression on the map at all. The alternative... Yeah, it's kind of crazy. Again, Michigan State, they control everything, and they know they control everything. And if you want to go to Infernal Dragon, you want to contest that, honestly, Harrisburg might just take Baron and say, okay, let's shove down some of these auxiliary towers, let's shove down the remaining side lanes, and let's ensure that we have the map set up for when the time comes that we win a game or we win a big fight, that we can actually just close the game off the back of it for anywhere through mid lane.
The blade goes wide, charm as well, but here is the fight they've been looking for. Really Big Meme, though, looks like he didn't take any damage. What the Cyclone into the backline. Really Big Meme gets the kill. The Samira is down. They are knocking everyone down from Harrisburg. So Zile running for the hills. Emps as well. Dragon secured. How do they keep doing it?
That is a great question. I don't know how the poking forward actually occurred here from Harrisburg, but it means that Michigan State get to make the fight that they want, where they set up Zethal for a massive bullet time. They set up for pick potential on the front end of this fight, and it means that Michigan State is not dead yet. They grab not only the Infernal Dragon to deny the Soul Point, but they're going to run directly towards the Baron buff. Zile's still up, Emps is still up, but they have 20 seconds until the rest of their team is back. I don't know that they can contest this. If they try to 50-50 and lose their team and end up losing a bunch of structures, none of the towers are down. You know how much standing that gold is, Travis? Michigan State flips this game if you are not careful. You have to give Baron, almost certainly. You do not give them the space to take everything on the map, because that will equalize the gold, and this game is right back to even.
Look at this. Look at the dance that's going around in the mid lane. It's so tense. They focus everything on RB. I mean, he took no damage.
Now, not to mention, like, they're running right into Zethal, and the person that you're paying attention to is Emps, who's on the side. He was steps, maybe 2 seconds from getting far enough that he could have actually hit a charm on the backside of the fight against the Misfortune that would have saved the majority of the health bars, and they weren't patient, right? Somehow, the loss of patience from Harrisburg right there led to the pull in from Nautilus and the attempt from, them actually losing quite a bit. As Michigan State, they pull the Baron, they pull the fight win, they're down 3K. They were down 10K 10 minutes ago, and they're down 3K, Travis! Round of 16!
Round of 16, but Sky gets caught out of position! He gets blown back! And that is the support taken off the field. It's not the end of the world. They do still have Baron buff. They still were, like you talked about, took away that Drake. But they can't make mistakes like that. And I love the fact you brought up the gold lead. This is with Michigan State not having a single tower to the name.
They're continuing to push elsewhere on the map. Emps is able to catch the top wave, and there's so much oppression with like a 4v3 on the bottom side. They have to be careful about Lawrence's pushing as well, just out of fear that that's going to come through. I want to take a quick moment just to summarize what's happening in terms of itemization, because you've got Crit, and you've got a little bit of junk drawer action from Hopeful, who has to wait for an item breakpoint because he's got a Vamp Scepter, and then of course he has the healing reduction as well in the Executioners. So one of those two has to be full completed because he decided to buy both instead of completing or having two components to one item. So there's a thought there compared to the 4 completed items of Zethal. So Zethal is very powerful at this moment. Not to mention, 3 items on the Ivern means that the Enchanter is full online, and Rabadon's just got completed by RBM. He is a man in these team fights. And look at this gold that's slowly flowing into Michigan State. They've taken this lead down to 3,500. They're going to keep going, keep pushing for more, probably reduce it to 2.5K by the end of all things.
Zile's on the flame. The first 2 towers they are able to grab inside the game are in the mid lane. But look at this. Sunlight is the immediate answer. That is a kill, Lawrence! Where are you at? But while this is all happening, Emps is just split pushing away top lane. He is going to recall. Not going to get more, but...
I was about to say, Emps has to back. Because if Emps doesn't back, they have one more wave, they potentially push in, and they just win a team fight, and the game is over. But this saves the game for Harrisburg. They backed out of topside. They were worried about it. Michigan State was going to respond, so the mid push didn't matter anyway. The gold back to, it looks like 4K after some of the pushing on top and bottom netted them a couple of inner towers that hadn't gone down yet for Harrisburg, so at least they found a couple strikes back as well. Again, this gold lead has evaporated compared to what it was before, which is just incredible. And again, when you've got an Ivern who's low econ, you've got a support in the Leona as well that's relatively low econ with the Locket, a lot of impact that isn't necessarily inside of the gold that those two champions have. And the damage is there for the members that do matter here from Michigan State, so put that on. Not to mention, again, you're stuck on 3 items right now as the Samira, 3 completed items that is, and probably pot most of the time. Your Ahri is absurdly strong, has the stopwatch in tow as well, which means Emps can make a much more aggressive forward-footing play inside of a fight that's going to be coming up here in a bit of time. 1 minute until the Infernal Drake. Once again, Michigan State doesn't want to give Soul Point over unless it nets them something that literally wins them the game. So they will look for a fight to try to contest up against this. They are the first ones in the river by a long shot.
Yeah, they got Daisy to front line for him as well. See if they can check everybody for the action. Gets chunked for doing a little bit of reconnaissance for the squad, but I think they're perfectly happy with that. Lawrence has gone mega onto the side. Emps here inside the team fight just yet, but is onto the side. Gets a charm onto Leona. No other action. This is going to be a fight decided around this dragon, it seems, unless Harrisburg just decides they want to barrel down the mid lane.
They're going to force this team to fight into them. They're going to force this team to come through. Another Daisy actually pops up.
Oh, they get a catch. That's on the Misfortune. He's gone. They are able to get him, and now it is the Hellfire coming in. Really Big Meme is on a rampage, though. He is tearing apart the rest of the team while this is all happening. You may have assassinated one member, but Michigan State stands strong. Really Big Meme goes golden, stays alive for a little bit longer. The rest of the team tries to come and support. The shields are too massive. They're able to get the kill on the Zac in the back line. Michigan State are fighting their way into the game.
They have dug their way out of one of the biggest holes of the tournament here against one of the top contenders of the tournament here, Travis. I don't even know how that fight played out so perfectly for them. I have to assume it was a combination of RBM and also Sunlight with big AoE ultimates being able to take things against the side of Harrisburg. We'll get a chance to see because I knew Zethal was poking into this topside territory hoping an ultimate would come through as they get shoved up. Loopk flashes for this. Where is it? Where's the damage coming through? Yeah, it's all Sunlight and it's all RBM afterwards, just cleaning these members up, stacked into one place. Emps can't do enough on the backside of the fight to actually carry the other side, and that means another breath of fresh air, another dragon going over to the side of MSU, a Baron potentially in their back pocket as well. We set up potentially for a Baron to come through here. How have MSU turned this around? Harrisburg was almost unbreachable for the first 15-20 minutes of this game, only to throw everything away.
Michigan State were flatlined, and then all of a sudden our heartbeat was felt. This team is still alive. 2K differential. It is sole point for either team. The tension is cut down to a wire here as Michigan State are fighting for their possible spot in top 8. Harrisburg. How did they stop this team?
Great question. First off, it's really been Harrisburg overextending that's been punished really heavily from Michigan State. The itemization breakpoints are get there from the side of MSU, but it doesn't mean there's no team fight from Harrisburg. The problem is they're attacking individual members rather than attacking a bulk, right? If you put Nautilus in the middle of 3 members and then throw Samira in afterwards, that's a lot of damage that you could put into 3 members and win a fight. Right there, though, you saw them peel onto 1 member. You can't do that. You need multi-target damage in a composition like this from your Samira. Multi-target CC to apply to a number of members. That's the important bit here from the side of Harrisburg. It's what I'm paying attention to see if they're able to accomplish that goal. They're going to walk it Baron here. Michigan State is. They know that Emps, I don't think, is any longer pushing. He's now going to come from behind the pit. That is a fast Baron.
It's getting shredded right now. It's getting absolutely decimated. The HP bar has already been cut under half. Sky is tanking every single thing. The Soul Flare goes in. Only hits onto Hopeful, though. They get the Baron, and now MSU are fast on the retreat. The Cyclone has been used. Gnar ultimate hits onto 2 members. Emps is over here into the back line trying to cut off any hope of retreat. MSU are in a desperate Zile state here, but Hopeful is picking up members one by one. A double kill for the Samira. Only the Misfortune, only the Wukong remain, and they have to defend their base against Harrisburg's 4 members still up and present.
It is highly likely right now that Michigan State have to give up mid and top inhibitor, both of them, off the back of this fight. Harrisburg make the very clean call. If this doesn't actually just end the game, they have more members. They have no ultimates here on the side of MSU. They could just push for this. They have to find a way to clear this wave. I think the safe play for Harrisburg is to grab both inhibitors and play for the Infernal Soul. I really, honestly think they cannot make more mistakes because any more in Michigan State absolutely take full control of the game. But they are still in a place where they feel fine. Right there, Argentum used his body. He got himself ahead of the rest of the team. He threw off the ability of Harrisburg to try to take the Baron. No steal to come through, and it meant that they grabbed the Baron. The retreat was kind of a little more in shambles than I think that Michigan State was expecting. But at minimum now, your Baron can help set up your lanes for trying to combat against this Infernal Soul in 1 minute and 30 seconds. But with these top 2 inhibitors down, you have to spend so much time correcting these waves to make sure there's no winning play from Harrisburg elsewhere. It's a problem to think about.
Not a lot of members there to be able to finish them off. That's fine. That Scuttle does go over. Dragons spawning in about a minute, Rebel. This is going to be the last fight. It has to be, right? The Infernal Dragon has to be so contested between these 2.
Actually, okay, I'm keeping my eye 1 minute timer. Emps is going to start pushing top lane, and I'm curious how far he takes it. Because you have this ability, again, with the inhibitor down, that if you push really far into the base, MSU has to respond to you with somebody, and that means that one of these pieces of the team fight is going to be pulled apart. I know Michigan State's thinking right this second, and that thinking is, we can jump them, we can attack them in a 3v5, 4v5, whatever it is, especially since Lawrence, they don't know where he's at, but they do know that he's not currently on the map. Are we about to get a base race? Tell me we are not about to get a base race. They've got a Baron buff in their back pocket, but there's no inhibitors, so this is going to be a really close one. This actually is going to end up in a base race situation. They're going to go for it. They're backing. Okay, safety first. Safety first. They're gonna pry one.
Oh,
Zach's
Misfortune
not
got
gonna
the
stop
back
the
off. Really Big Meme is still here. They're looking at the fight, but
who's
look
down?
at the Samira. He's gone. Really Big Meme is able to find the kill, and they're chasing him off the base.
They have enough to win.
Back and forth, but MSU are coming out on top of this situation. They're going to
They have
cut
enough
the
to win.
competition down to size. Harrisburg has no options available. They are getting chased back into the base. The Ahri,
No way.
Lawrence, Gnar, you can bring them all, but they won't be here in time. This is game from MSU.
10K in 15 minutes, Travis. 10K, they're down. We were talking about Harrisburg being perfect in the beginning of this game, not giving up anything, and MSU off the back of one pick in their jungle turn this game completely on their head. That's the number 2 seed from the north. That's why this matchup was so hyped. This is round of 16, Travis. We got nothing but bangers, man.
Nothing but certified bangers here. We got both teams vying for their spot, and now it's do or die between the two of them. We're going to send it to our desk to guide us through this roller coaster. We are going to send it over to a break, actually, so our desk can get ready, get off the roller coaster, get ourselves some fresh air, and get ourselves prepped for game number 3. So make sure you stay tuned.
Holy crap. I mean, I swear this stream has to be cursed or something. Every team that starts hitting the Nexus first ends up losing on the LCS stream. We are back. I'm your host, Dylan, joined by TJ and Joshi, and we are going to try to break down what happened during that game, and we made it. I mean, it's game 3. That was a wild, wild game. We're actually going to circle back to Giraffe towards the end because so much happened in that game. We want to make sure that we have time for the replay. So let's get straight into our first clip, and it is a 60-minute team fight where Harrisburg is kicking butt.
Yeah, this is where it starts looking a little bit better for the side of Harrisburg, right? It is, or excuse me, for Michigan State. It looks pretty good because Hopefulx starts going off, but afterwards it just kind of feels like there's nothing left in the tank after this fight, right? This is kind of the last moment where they are so far ahead. They hit that 10K mark. They are in total control of the game, but from that position, it doesn't feel like there's anything left for them to do, almost, right? Everything seems to be going wrong one step after another.
Yeah, I mean, we saw, and I think Rebel quoted it as about a 10,000 gold lead
10,000
for
at 20
Harrisburg
minutes.
at 20 minutes. I mean, that seems unlosable, and the fact that it's a comeback. I mean, I would have to run the numbers, but that's got to be one of the biggest collegiate comebacks of all time in an elimination game with RBM, the senior, as your jungler. I mean, the storyline built itself. That's so exciting. It's so hyped. TJ, walk us through the middle team fight that happened at 31 minutes. MSU comes back.
I mean, I guess the plot armor is too strong. Harrisburg tries to find a fight in mid lane here. We see that that's not actually what occurs. The Nautilus ends up going into Azonia's free play pop up. Thank you. And Misfortune ends up popping up with Azonia's. Nautilus doesn't get to do that much. Wukong going crazy on the back line of Harrisburg. Emps unfortunately unable to participate, unable to stop the Misfortune from ulting, and this is where you're kind of like, okay, guys, this is a serious game. As Harrisburg, you have to be saying, like, let's focus up. Let's make sure that we're doing all our steps properly. And for the side of MSU, that's where you're screaming, it's winnable, winnable, winnable. I think Scotty was screaming. Yeah.
I mean, there's such a good job of them, like, marking the Samira and making sure that they can't get in, because if you look at the rest of the composition, the damage just kind of isn't there on the rest of the team, right? If you mark the Samira, you make sure she can't get in, do the and shooting everything all around, there's no way to actually die during any of those team fights. And so I love the fact that they identified the win condition. They identified, like, the one person that they need to kill, and if you can do that, you know, Hopeful never really had a whole lot of hope for the rest of the game because he was just always dead.
And the fact that the Wukong goes from 1-5 to being so impactful in that game, I mean, it really just goes to show how, you know, good of a sense of how to play as champion, what the role in that game was, because very easily that could have gotten out of hand for MSU, but RBM on the Gwen with the Ivern support, I mean, it was just such an intense and incredible game. And throwing it back to you, Joshi, walk us through how this game ended.
Dude, what is it with Zile today and these backdoor attempts and these base races and everything going on? It just feels like there are so many opportunities for both teams to have these wins. But you see, it's the exact same thing from what we saw in our last series. You have Gnar and Ahri trying to go for the end where everybody else is trying to stall them out. But crucially, the Misfortune get back to base. And Hopeful, we kept saying they were trying to get him, make sure there's no damage coming through. Instantly, everybody jumps right on top of Samira, and there's just no damage left. So Gnar and Ahri, I don't know what you gotta do. You just get chased down by a monkey.
And look at the unsung hero here of Ivern. He provided so much shields. He made it such that nobody could even come close to touching the Gwen. So I think it's really important to highlight that Lanse played well there come in the late game team fights. And I think the pressure is starting to build here on the stream today. Like, we had so many games where there's people that will make big mistakes, all the base races, like, this is an elimination match, remember that. And
yes,
now we're only one game away from a ticket to LA. The players' nerves have to be through the roof at this point.
But this is why we love collegiate, guys. This is what happens. It's not the cleanest League of Legends in the world, but goddamn is it entertaining.
It is. I mean, back and forth games, it feels like every single series goes down to the wire, no matter who's the favorites. Throw that out the window. It's so close. We're going to a game 3 in our final series to decide who goes to LA. I mean, it really does not get any better than this. And you've got veterans on both sides. We highlighted them in the pregame segment, right? You've got Zile, who's been on Harrisburg for years. You've got RBM, who's been on MSU for years. They've both had great performances in this series. But let's talk about Game 3. Let's talk about adjustments. TJ, I'm going to start with you. What needs to happen for Harrisburg to bounce back in Game 3?
I think Harrisburg needs to just take a second, like, do some meditation, some yoga, breathe. I'm sure there's some tilt going on, because losing a game like that does not feel good on the mental. I have the faith in that they'll be able to do it, and their coaching staff will help them out and everything. But I think they just need to sit down and say, okay, it's now a best of one. We performed extremely well game 1.
Yeah.
Let's chill out, play our game, and not deal with whatever all of this is. I don't necessarily need to see draft adjustments, just like a reset and say, okay, let's restart, try this again.
Yeah. The only other thing that might even be an opportunity, right, is we were talking about how Zile was kind of leading the team throughout most of it, but this time when you start falling behind, this is when the 10-man roster comes in. If somebody is just like not mentally there, if they are too tilted, now's the time where you can start reaching into that extra man. Maybe Shorter Ace comes in, maybe they bring in High Key Savage into the bottom lane. There are different strategies you can go for, but man, Harrisburg's coaching staff is really going to be in a spot where they have to rally their troops.
From the side of MSU, I just want to see them wake up, right? Like they should be screaming, winnable,
Yeah.
winnable. Like in the first game, it didn't feel like they were present. In the start of the second game, it didn't feel like they were present. I want to see what cheese they have prepared, what strategy they can flip here, and just wake up, right? It's the trip to LA. Surely they want it.
Oh, you have to believe that they want it. The trip to LA is on the line. Both teams, you've got the Student Run Club versus the Titans of Collegiate, who have been around the block. Both teams with a chance to go to LA. Game 3, we are about to get into draft. Rebel Fox Travysty, take us through the final game. Let's go.